Hello, curious minds. Welcome to this intellectual journey. Have you ever stopped to wonder why, no matter how much you do, you always feel like it's not enough? Like you're running on a treadmill chasing a finish line that keeps moving further away. This feeling of perpetual exhaustion isn't a personal failing. Today, we're going to dismantle one of the most insidious myths of our era, the idea that constant productivity equals a valuable life. We'll explore how this obsession has become a kind of secular religion, preventing us from something fundamental. The simple act of being, of existing without the need to justify our presence with results. Brace yourself, because what you're about to hear might just change the way you view your work, your rest, and your very identity. The question we should be asking isn't how to be more productive, but why we feel obligated to be so in the first place, even in our free time. The answer is unsettling. In the past, exploitation came from an external figure, a boss, a foreman on a factory floor. It was a clear structure, the worker against the system. But our society has evolved in a far more subtle and insidious way. Today, we no longer need an overseer to tell us to work harder. We've become our own taskmasters, our own executioners. Modern philosophers and sociologists call this the performance society. In this new paradigm, we're not oppressed by others. Instead, we voluntarily exploit ourselves. We believe we do it by choice for self-improvement to achieve success. But in reality, we're obeying an invisible yet incredibly powerful social mandate. The mantra is, you can do it all. We're sold the idea that we're entrepreneurs of our own lives, optimizing every second for peak performance. The problem is, when the exploiter and the exploited are the same person, rebellion becomes impossible. How do you go on strike against yourself? It's a perfect psychological trap. This self-exploitation is far more efficient than traditional exploitation. It operates under a veneer of freedom. You don't feel forced, you feel motivated. The exhaustion that results from this process isn't perceived as oppression, but rather as an achievement. Being utterly drained has become a status symbol, a badge of honor in the productivity war. Technology plays a crucial role in this system. Your smartphone isn't just a communication tool, it's a portable office, a factory in your pocket that never shuts down. Notifications, late-night emails, the pressure to be constantly available, they've completely blurred the line between work and life. We no longer go to work, we are the work. We live in a kind of digital panopticon, a circular prison where we're all watching each other, showcasing our productive lives on social media, competing over who's busier, who's optimized their existence best. It's an endless competition with no winners, only varying degrees of exhaustion. This culture comes at an extremely high cost to our mental health. The direct result of this constant pressure is the exhaustion syndrome, widely known as burnout. It's not just simple tiredness, it's a deep emotional, physical, and mental depletion. It's the individual's collapse under the weight of their own demands. It's the soul screaming, enough. What studies in occupational psychology reveal is alarming. Depression and anxiety have skyrocketed in recent decades, with many experts directly linking it to this performance culture. The pressure to be positive and proactive all the time prevents us from processing negative emotions, creating a perfect storm within us. We've lost the capacity for contemplation, for simply being bored. Boredom, which historically has been the cradle of creativity and deep reflection, is now viewed as wasted time, a flaw in our planning. We fill every free second with stimuli, self-improvement podcasts, checking emails, anything that seems productive. Think about it for a moment. When was the last time you did absolutely nothing without feeling guilty? Without thinking about what you should be doing? That space, that void, is precisely where life truly happens. It's where we connect with ourselves, where genuine ideas emerge, where the soul can breathe. The performance society turns us into production machines, but it robs us of our capacity to be human. It distances us from rituals, from communities, from relationships that don't have a useful purpose. Love, friendship, play, art, everything that gives meaning to life is threatened because it doesn't generate measurable output. Even rest has been commodified. We no longer just rest, we optimize our sleep with apps. We don't simply relax, we practice mindfulness or conscious awareness as another technique to enhance our future performance. Leisure has become just another task, another self-improvement project. Now, the deepest and most revealing part of all this is the why. Why is the system so dominant? Because an individual who is constantly busy, focused on their own performance and their own guilt, is a docile individual. They have no time or mental energy to question power structures. An exhausted citizen doesn't protest, doesn't organize, doesn't imagine alternative futures. They only seek the next dopamine hit from completing a task, the next like on their post about their latest achievement. It's the most effective form of social control ever invented because it's almost invisible and self-administered. The true subversion, the authentic rebellion in the performance society, isn't about working smarter or finding a new time management method. The real rebellion is daring to do nothing. It's reclaiming the right to idleness, to contemplation, to silence. So how can we begin to escape this trap? The first step is awareness. Understanding that your exhaustion isn't a personal failure, but the expected outcome of a system designed for it. Freeing yourself from guilt is the first and most important act of resistance. You're not broken, you're just overloaded. The second step is to create sacred spaces of non-productivity, moments in your day or week where the goal is to have no goals. Wandering aimlessly, staring out the window, listening to music without doing anything else. At first you'll feel uncomfortable, anxious. That's the performance addiction talking. You must relearn how to simply be with yourself. This doesn't mean abandoning your goals or responsibilities. It means redefining success. Perhaps true success isn't an empty inbox, but a calm mind. Perhaps it's not optimizing every minute, but fully savoring a few moments without any external or internal pressure. Next time you feel guilty for resting, remember this. You're not being lazy, you're performing a political act. You're defending your humanity against a system that wants to turn you into a robot. Your rest is a form of silent yet powerful protest. In summary, the obsession with productivity is a gilded cage. It promises us success and fulfillment, but delivers exhaustion and a profound existential void. We've become slaves to an idea we ourselves feed every single day. It's time to stop the wheel, even if just for a moment. Thank you so much for joining me in this much-needed reflection. I hope it has given you a fresh perspective on the pressure we all feel. It's been a pleasure to share this space and these ideas with you. If this message resonated with you, please subscribe and hit the notification bell so you don't miss our next deep dives. And now I ask you, what's your way of rebelling against productivity? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Let's remember that the word school comes from the Greek skole, which originally meant leisure or free time. It was in this time, free from obligations, where thought, philosophy, and art were born. We have completely inverted that meaning, turning learning and life into a constant obligation. The system promotes a kind of toxic positivity. We're told we must love what we do, that we must find our passion and turn it into work. This sounds inspiring, but in practice it means that work colonizes the last safe areas of our lives, like our hobbies and true passions. Fatigue is the symptom of a society that has erased the negative. We refuse to accept pain, conflict, boredom, failure. We want a clean, optimized, friction-free life. But a life without negativity isn't a human life, it's an artificial existence, the life of an avatar in a simulation. Think about nature. A tree doesn't try to grow faster, it simply grows. A river doesn't strive to flow, it simply flows. There's a rhythm, a cycle of activity and rest. Our society has declared war on this natural cycle, demanding infinite growth and incessant activity, which is, by definition, unsustainable. Transparency has become an imperative. We're expected to share everything, our achievements, our processes, our morning routines. We're like products in a shop window, constantly evaluated for our efficiency. This total exposure robs us of intimacy, mystery, and the inner space necessary for self-knowledge. This phenomenon is known as the tyranny of visibility. When everything must be visible, quantifiable, and communicable, we lose the subtleties of the human experience. Not everything that truly matters can be measured. How do you quantify the value of a deep conversation, a gentle touch, or watching a sunset in silence? The system ignores what it cannot count. Multitasking is another one of the great myths. We pride ourselves on doing several things at once, but neuroscience is clear on this. What we know from brain scans is that the brain doesn't perform multiple complex tasks simultaneously. In reality, it rapidly switches from one to another, losing focus, depth, and efficiency. Multitasking is a practice that trains us for superficiality. We get accustomed to fragmented attention, incapable of the deep concentration required for critical thinking, empathy, or artistic creation. We are creating a society of broad but very shallow thinkers, jumping from one piece of information to the next without truly assimilating anything. The language we use betrays this mindset. We speak of investing time, spending energy, managing relationships. We've applied the logic of capital and the market to every corner of our existence. People become contacts, experiences become networking opportunities, and life becomes a project to optimize. We've forgotten the power of no. Saying no to a project, an invitation, a demand is an act of personal sovereignty. It's drawing a boundary and protecting your inner space, your time, and your energy. In a culture that glorifies the constant yes, no is a revolutionary word we must relearn to utter without guilt. Silence has also become a luxury, or worse, something to fear. We fill it with music, podcasts, background noise. But silence is the canvas upon which thoughts are painted. Without silence, there's no introspection. Reclaiming silence is reclaiming a part of our mind that has been hijacked by the constant noise of the modern world. The body is the first to sound the alarm. Headaches, digestive problems, muscle tension, insomnia. These are signals of an overtaxed nervous system. Your body is telling you what your mind, indoctrinated by productivity culture, refuses to admit, that you've exceeded your limits and need to stop. This culture not only affects individuals, but also poisons organizations. It fosters internal competition, distrust, and a perpetual state of urgency that hinders long-term planning and genuine creativity. Real innovation doesn't stem from haste, but from experimentation, play, and the possibility of making mistakes. We've created a society of performance athletes, constantly training for a competition that never ends, and whose prize is simply the ability to keep competing tomorrow. It's a game designed never to be won, only to be played until final exhaustion. The only way to win is to refuse to play by those rules. Let's look at the difference between work and labor. Historically, labor was the effort necessary for survival, repetitive and unending. Work, on the other hand, was about creating something lasting, a work of art, a building, something with a beginning and an end. Today, we've turned all work into infinite labor, a series of tasks that never conclude. Dopamine addiction is the neurological mechanism that keeps us hooked. Every completed task, every notification, every like gives us a small hit of this pleasure neurotransmitter. Tech companies know this and design their products to exploit this vulnerability in our brains, keeping us in a cycle of stimulus and reward. We become incapable of enjoying the process. We only focus on the end result. A walk in the woods stops being a pleasure in itself and turns into an opportunity to count steps and burn calories. Preparing a meal is reduced to an efficient nutrition task rather than an act of creation and enjoyment. The concept of quality time is itself a trap. It implies that the rest of our time is low quality, something to be endured or rushed through. Life shouldn't be divided like this. Every moment, even the most mundane, has the potential to be lived fully if we're not obsessed with getting to the next item on our agenda. The cure isn't a new productivity app or a weekend retreat. The cure is philosophical and profound. It requires a shift in values, both individually and collectively. It means valuing being over doing, connection over competition, and rest not as a tool, but as a right. It's fundamental to understand that this culture isn't an accident. It serves very specific economic interests. A worker who is constantly insecure, who feels guilty for not doing enough, is a worker who won't ask for a raise, won't question working conditions, and will accept unreasonable workloads as a personal challenge. The pressure also manifests in consumption. We're told we must optimize our bodies with supplements, our minds with online courses, our homes with the latest tech. The constant dissatisfaction generated by performance culture is the perfect fuel for an economic system based on endless consumption. True leisure, the kind without purpose, is an act of economic resistance. It's time that cannot be monetized, that generates no data, that doesn't contribute to the gross domestic product. And that's why the system views it with suspicion and has taught us to view it with guilt. Reclaiming that leisure is a direct challenge to the logic of the total market. The irony is that creativity and great ideas don't emerge from a packed schedule, but from the empty spaces between tasks. A meta-analysis of several decades of research on creativity showed that a relaxed and unfocused mental state, often called daydreaming, is crucial for complex problem solving. By always being on, we never allow our brains to enter this default mode of operation, which is where unexpected connections are made. We're so busy chopping down trees that we don't have time to see the forest. Forced productivity, paradoxically, makes us less intelligent and less innovative. So, the next time you find yourself staring into space, daydreaming, don't rush to get back to work. Give yourself permission to just stay there for a while. You might be on the verge of your next big idea, or simply, you'll be exercising your fundamental right to be a human being, not a production unit. We've forgotten the art of slowness. Eating slowly, walking slowly, speaking slowly. Slowness allows us to experience the world with greater depth and detail. Constant rush makes us go through life like a tourist who only takes pictures but never truly sees the landscape. Slowness is a way to reconnect with reality. This productivity mindset also robs us of empathy. When we're constantly rushed and focused on our own goals, we have fewer mental and emotional resources to consider the feelings and needs of others. We become efficient nodes in a network but lose the capacity for genuine human connection. The antidote is vulnerability. Admitting that we can't do it all, that we need help, that we're tired. In the performance society, vulnerability is seen as a weakness. But in reality, it's the foundation of trust and community. It's what allows us to stop competing and start collaborating and caring for each other. Social media comparison is the accelerant to this fire. We see the edited, successful versions of others' lives and compare them to our own chaotic behind the scenes. It's an unfair comparison that feeds our insecurity and pushes us to strive even harder, not for our own values, but to maintain an appearance. Cultivating an inner secret garden is a survival strategy. A hobby you don't monetize, a thought you don't share, a place you go just to be at peace. Something that is yours and yours alone, immune to the logic of productivity and exposure. It's a sanctuary for your authentic self, far from external judgment. It's important to recognize that privilege plays a role. For some people, resting less and working more isn't an option to optimize themselves, but a necessity for survival. However, the ideology of productivity affects everyone, creating a cultural pressure that makes even those struggling for the basics feel guilty for not hustling harder. The solution isn't individualistic. While we can make changes in our own lives, true liberation will come from a cultural and structural shift. From policies that protect the right to disconnect, from companies that value well-being over constant presence, and from an education that teaches the value of leisure and reflection. We've reached a critical point where productivity has become counterproductive. An exhausted, anxious, and uncreative workforce isn't an effective workforce in the long run. The most innovative companies are starting to realize this, implementing shorter work weeks and fostering rest. We must learn to see boredom not as a void to be filled, but as a space to be. It's in boredom that the mind wanders freely, making connections that focused concentration doesn't allow. It's the moment when the subconscious works on problems the conscious mind can't solve. Let's embrace boredom. The hustle narrative of constant grind glorified in entrepreneurial culture is especially damaging. It sells the idea that extreme sacrifice, sleep deprivation, and a lack of social life are the price of success. It's a narrative that celebrates self-destruction in the name of ambition, and it's a dangerous lie. The contemplative life, historically reserved for philosophers and monks, should be a right for everyone, not as a permanent state, but as a dimension of life that we can access. Moments to reflect on purpose, morality, and meaning beyond the next task on our to-do list. Finally, question your own metrics of success. Are you living by your own values or by the values society has imposed on you? Defining your own version of a good life, one that includes space for imperfection, rest, and joy without purpose, is the most powerful act of self-affirmation there is. This pressure starts at a very young age. Children have schedules packed with extracurricular activities, all designed to build a competitive resume for the future. We are robbing them of their childhoods, which is the time for free and unstructured play, fundamental for the development of creativity and social skills. The result is a generation of highly anxious young people who feel immense pressure to succeed before they even understand what that means for them. They've internalized the idea that their worth as individuals depends on their academic and extracurricular achievements. It's an immense burden for such young shoulders. The language of self-optimization leads us to treat ourselves as if we were an engineering project. We seek to hack our sleep, our diet, our habits, but human beings are not machines to be optimized. We are complex organisms that need care, not hacks. We need compassion, not efficiency. Perfectionism is productivity's bedfellow. The need for everything to be perfect paralyzes and exhausts us. Accepting good enough is an act of liberation. It allows us to move forward, experiment, and most importantly, finish things and rest, instead of being caught in an endless cycle of revisions. Gratitude can be a powerful antidote. Instead of focusing on what you haven't yet achieved, take a moment each day to acknowledge what you already have and what you've done. This shifts the focus from lack and ambition to abundance and satisfaction, calming the inner voice that constantly demands more and more. The culture of coffee and energy drinks is a visible symptom of this problem. We depend on chemical stimulants to maintain a work pace that is fundamentally unnatural and unsustainable for our bodies. We're borrowing energy from the future, and that debt sooner or later will have to be paid back with interest. Let's recall pre-industrial societies. Their concept of time wasn't linear and urgent, but cyclical and seasonal. There were times of intense work, like harvest, but also long periods of rest and celebration. We've forgotten that rest isn't the absence of work, but an integral and necessary part of life's cycle. The obsession with productivity also kills spontaneity. Everything must be planned, scheduled, put on the calendar. We leave little to no room for chance, for unexpected encounters, for adventures that arise from an unplanned detour. Real life often happens in those unscheduled margins. And here we arrive at the darkest twist of this ideology. The ultimate goal of constant productivity isn't just economic. It's a mechanism to prevent us from facing the big questions of existence. Who am I? What is my purpose? What constitutes a well-lived life? These questions are scary, and busyness is the perfect narcotic to avoid having to hear them. Being busy is the perfect excuse to avoid the difficult inner work of self-knowledge. It's easier to optimize a spreadsheet than to examine our fears, our sorrows, and our contradictions. Productivity becomes an escape from ourselves, the most socially accepted form of evasion. Therefore, when you choose to stop, when you choose silence, you're not just resting your body, you're opening the door to your own soul. You're creating the necessary space for deeper truths to emerge. It's an act of courage because it requires confronting everything we've been avoiding with our busyness. Joy is different from pleasure. Pleasure is a quick hit, like completing a task. Joy is a deeper, more lasting state, often found in connection, contemplation, in simply being. The performance society offers us infinite pleasures to make us forget to seek true joy. You don't need to earn the right to exist. Your worth doesn't reside in what you produce. You are valuable simply because you are. This is a simple truth, yet radically opposed to everything our culture screams at us every day. Repeat it until you feel it in your bones. Your worth is inherent, it doesn't depend on your performance. Imagine a future where people's biographies aren't summarized by their professional achievements, but by their capacity for kindness, by the moments of joy they shared, by their curiosity, by the love they gave and received. This is the paradigm shift we must fight for, a world that values being as much as doing. The path is long and requires conscious effort to unlearn decades of conditioning. Be kind to yourself in this process. There will be days when you fall back into the productivity trap. Don't punish yourself. Simply take note, take a deep breath, and try again the next day. Surround yourself with people who understand and share this perspective. Create a supportive community where you can remind each other of the value of rest and celebrate moments of joyful idleness. Social pressure is strong, and countering it in a group is much easier than doing it alone. So, in conclusion, constant productivity isn't just a mantra that prevents us from being, it's a sickness of our society's soul. One that exhausts us, isolates us, and distracts us from what truly matters. Recognizing it is the first step towards healing. Your life is so much more than a to-do list. It's a work of art to be lived, an experience to be felt, a mystery to be explored. Don't let the tyranny of efficiency rob you of the chance to truly live it. Reclaim your right to simply be wonderfully and beautifully human. Next time you feel the pressure to make the most of your time, ask yourself, make the most of it for what? And for whom? Often the answer reveals that we're serving an ideal we haven't consciously chosen. Taking control of your time is taking control of your life. Redefine laziness. Laziness isn't the absence of activity, but often the refusal to participate in meaningless or dehumanizing activity. Sometimes laziness can be a form of wisdom, a sign that your mind and body are resisting something not aligned with your well-being. Watch children play. They do it with total absorption, with no end goal other than the play itself. That's the essence of what we've lost, the ability to immerse ourselves in an activity for the pure joy of doing it. Reclaiming that ability to play in our adult lives is an act of healing. Don't underestimate the power of small acts. Turning off your phone notifications, taking 5 minutes to watch the clouds, reading a poem without analyzing it, listening to an entire song with your eyes closed. These aren't luxuries, they're basic human needs that we've forgotten. The system wants us predictable and quantifiable, but the essence of being human is to be a little chaotic, unpredictable, and mysterious. Embrace your own complexity. You are not a problem to be solved or a system to be optimized. You are a universe to be discovered. Give yourself permission to explore it. Exhaustion is ultimately a disconnection from our bodies, our emotions, from others, and from nature. The cure, therefore, must be reconnection, to re-inhabit our bodies, listen to our emotions, cultivate our relationships, and spend time in the natural world. In summary, the war against productivity isn't won by fighting harder, but by surrendering wisely. Surrendering to the need for rest, surrendering to our own imperfect humanity, and surrendering to the idea that we are already enough here and now without needing to do anything else to prove it. So I invite you to take a breath. Not tomorrow, not on your next vacation, but right now. Just for an instant, inhale deeply, exhale. Feel the simple, profound, and revolutionary pleasure of being alive with no other conditions attached. Thank you so much for your time and attention. It's been a true honor to explore these ideas with you. I hope this reflection serves as permission to be kinder and more compassionate with yourself in this demanding world. If you want to keep questioning the hidden truths of our society, subscribe and join this community of curious minds. Now, I'd love to hear from you. What's the first thing you'll do to reclaim your right to simply be? Share your plan in the comments.